we're going to go through a brief overview, and then we're going to look at what it actually looks like to configure multiple languages in CommCare. And the example I'm going to use today actually uses Hindi. So it's an interesting example because it's a non-Roman character script where it has you know, kind of like little hieroglyphs or characters that are drawn. And that makes it a really difficult language to configure in most software. So it's a cool one for us to try with CommCare, and we use it a lot. Actually, we have a lot of projects in India. So I like to go through just like a little bit of who Dimagi is in the beginning, and kind of what we do, and like how we view technology and what we think is important. So we kind of have these 3 criteria for building scalable technology for frontline workers, and Dimagi builds open source cloud products that support the advanced workflows required to strengthen frontline programs. So really we develop CommCare as our main product, but we do other things as well. And it is a cloud product, meaning that there's a central server that anyone anywhere in the world can log into their CommCare account and build an app. They can only see their data, and it's privatized towards them, but they're able to share the benefits of having features that are made generic for multiple projects all over the world. It's also open source, and what this means is that our software and the actual code of the software is published on GitHub. So this means that if a project is going to scale, that you can actually set up a local server at a low cost, and institutions like governments can be involved in actually adapting the code, and it avoids vendor lock-in. So it keeps Dimagi honest on our pricing, and also make sure that we're able to collaborate with others from a technical standpoint. And then finally, complex workflows. So this is really case management, which is kind of one of our big pushes. And we talk about case management a lot, and tracking things over time, and being able to use that feature. But I would say that things like being able to go into multiple languages kind of plays into this as well, or referrals, or SMS, including things like that. But really, this idea of multiple languages as part of a complex workflow. So if you have tribal languages or local languages that you're working with, as well as a regional language such as Swahili. I work in East Africa a lot, right? Or Hindi would be a great example of that. And then multiple languages available, and you can tailor it to a user's unique abilities. So this is just kind of what most systems look like with frontline workers now. They fill out lots and lots of data on paper forms, and then the data sits on a nice shelf. I believe this top one, the upper left hand, is 1 month's worth of community health worker data in a clinic. And often a lot of this information is lost, so we're really trying to help organizations do a better job of both collecting frontline worker data and then using it. So there's valuable information in there, and how do we get it out? CommCare currently has over 300 projects in 40 countries. So you can see some of our key partners here, and we have many more. In fact, I think this map can be updated with a few more countries recently. So we're pretty proud of the fact that we work all over the world. And again, today we're talking about multiple languages and configuring multiple languages. And so it's important, in order to be able to work in all of these countries, that we can go into multiple languages. Here's just like an overview of some of the things that most mobile tools for frontline workers will be able to do, and CommCare does all of these. And so just a basic understanding. So we do data collection as well as checklists and protocols. So things like, childhood illness checklists are really common, as well as maternal health protocols. Outside of healthcare, lots of work in agriculture and things like that as well. Program monitoring and evaluation. So helping collect data for reports, or collect data around how a program is doing. Client records and tracking is also something that we do really well. So case management or client tracking. Client counseling, most of this ends up happening through multimedia, the use of images and sound clips and videos to help counsel clients. And again, as we talk through multiple languages and like benefits of doing that, that one of those is that you can put the counseling messages in a language that they're most comfortable with, and really are able to tailor it to your client. And then also SMS for performance improvement. And SMS is another area where we can go into multiple languages. So it's not just the applications. We can have, multimedia that's tailored to each area, and we can also have SMS tailored to multiple languages. This is CommCare's website. If you haven't been there, you can go ahead and go there now and sign up for an account as I'm talking. You can follow along. We're going to go through an app that's on the Exchange today. So if you go to the Exchange, it's the Remind project, and you can actually download and look at it as well. So as I sat down and I started thinking about this webinar today, I was wondering, why would someone want to use multiple languages? Like, what is my argument for getting people to actually use the multiple languages? And there are some really interesting benefits, right? So the first one is that it ensures that applications are culturally appropriate. I'm American. I work a lot in sub-Saharan Africa, and oftentimes, if we're not careful, we can do things that aren't culturally appropriate in technology. And so one way that we can ensure that we're building our applications correctly is to include a local language. It also improves the usability for end users. I think often it might be difficult for them to know certain, for example, medical terms in one language, maybe their second language. And so having those words readily available, or if they're not so comfortable with the local language, often a healthcare worker is brought in, or a frontline worker is brought in from another region, and they might not speak the local dialect so well. And so you can put it, you can mix it up so the sound clips that they're playing to the clients are in one language and what they're reading is in another. So really helping them converse with the people that they're collecting information from, but also improve their usability and make sure that the language is in their native language. It improves the credibility with clients. So I think one thing that really comes across whenever we're building apps in, for example, local languages that don't have wide coverage outside of a specific region of a country, very, very small population speaks it. And whenever we translate into that language, it really, it opens, it's a much more welcoming application and much more well received, and builds the credibility of the community health worker. Like, not only do they have this tool, but they have this tool that is in their local language. And that's really exciting. You can also target specific populations, and here mostly vulnerable populations. So populations who might not be able to access services or access information because they don't speak a major dialect. So, for example, in West Africa, if they don't speak French, we're able to go in more regional languages to help target populations that can't seek information or can't receive information because of language barriers. So it's really useful in helping us read, or helping us reach vulnerable populations or target populations. And it also allows an application to be reusable in multiple regions or countries. So we have several applications that are the exact same application content-wise. So we're asking the same questions, we're showing the same types of images, or collecting the same data. However, we're changing simply the language, or we're asking them what district they're in, and assigning them that via their country, and able to completely reuse the rest of the app, not have to change much else except for maybe put it in another language, and so translate it and maybe change a few images or something like that. So really able to lower our costs of developing apps by reusing and standardizing the content. I know World Vision has done this in about 14 countries now. So they've been really phenomenal at actually just revamping the same application. And what's great about that is, as we look at data, at an international level, we are actually collecting the exact same things. And again, it's regionally appropriate as well. The good news is we try to make this all painless. I think whenever we start talking about multiple languages and going into 4 and 5 languages, it sounds like a lot of work, and it is. I won't try and make it less work. There's definitely a lot of work involved in doing this. However, we try to make it pretty painless in CommCare, mainly because we use this tool a lot as well. So using Excel documents and bulk translations, you can pretty quickly translate an app into many different languages. So now I'm just going to walk you through a couple of screenshots, and then we're going to go and actually look at an application today, and look at what this looks like in CommCare. I'm not going to upload stuff. I'm just going to show you an app that has it configured and how to change it within the application. So it should be pretty straightforward. So step one is kind of just setting the language list. So here, if you look at CommCare HQ, we're on an app. We're on the Remind Pregnancy app. You can see on the left side we have like languages, and it's in English right now, but we've added a second language. We've added Hindi. And so this is where you would add languages. And I think almost every language in the world is there. We had one come up the other day that wasn't, and if you email our Google group, CommCare-users@googlegroups.com, it will, like, we can add it in. So these are pretty standard language lists. And what's nice about that is most of the translation then in CommCare is kind of already ready for you. So this one has a default of Hindi and English. Some languages we have just like better translation sets for, and we've worked with. I mean, it's interesting. It's sometimes really hard to come up with words for things like deploy or download to phone. So languages like Hindi and French and Spanish, which we work often in, and some others like actually Burmese we work quite a bit in, have better translations available as for the user interface. So again, like any errors on the phone or words like login, that's where like it says CommCare translation. So that's where that goes on. But a lot of this is actually already preset in CommCare. And then you could do this thing called bulk application translations. So if you look on here, it says download app to app translations, and you do, and it shows up in an Excel doc like this. And then you can actually just go ahead and put it in. So it's interesting because we're not just translating the forms or the questions that we're asking. We have to also translate the module names and the form names, and again, some of these other things that are included in the app. So all of that is kind of easily downloaded, and you can send it to a translator. So often organizations will pay a translator, or just like find someone who's really good in their organization and translate it. And then finally, the third thing that you want to look at is the multimedia. So for example, if you have Hindi sound clips and English sound clips, or you want to make sure that the Hindi ones are being spoken in Hindi and the English ones are being spoken in English, or vice versa, or however you want to configure it. So each language can actually also have separate multimedia packets for it as well. Okay, so again, there's a website. You can go there now. Just a little more information as we move forward. That you can sign up for a free CommCare account. Also, for further questions or more information on future webinars, and if you have a request for webinars, please email us, webinars@Demagi. We try to do them pretty regularly on different topics. And then for more information, you can go to help.comcarehq. So I'm going to share a new window now. I'm going to share an app for you. So this is what CommCare looks like when you log in, and this is the project dashboard. So I'm actually going to go look at the Remind pregnancy application, just their module. And this is available on the CommCare Exchange. So if you look at the Exchange, you can actually go and download this application. So you can see here, if I click on languages, we have configured Hindi and English here, and I could add another language. So if I decided to add in French, FRA is French, for example, and I can add it, and I can also delete it. I could change it to Spanish, which is ES. So let's actually just let's add in French. Let's see what happens if we just have that in there. And then I'm going to hit save. So again, here's where UI translations happen. And then also, again, I'm going to download this for you so you can see what it looks like. So here's the Excel spreadsheet. So you can see it is actually added in French as well. So here it says, here's my default Hindi, here's my pregnancy, and if I wanted to add in French, I would actually just go ahead and add in the question here, and then I can re-upload it into CommCare. Let's go back to CommCare. So then I would actually just upload it. I would choose my file with all my French translations and upload it. Okay, so now if we go into an actual form, I'll show you what it looks like whenever we add translations in there in the forms and modules. So again, this is an application that's tracking pregnant mothers and their babies. So I'm going to go into the registration form. And at any point, I can just change the language setting from English to Hindi or English to French if I want to see what's in there. And again, here on the question tree, I can do this as well. So here's the Hindi version. You can see French, we don't have anything, so it's just going to come up in the default language, which is Hindi. Or I can actually have it on the question ID. So let's look at it in English, since we're doing this in English today. So again, here's the, this is the form builder, and this is where we add questions. So we can do all of the translations via the bulk translator. We can also update them here. So here it says French, and this is where I would add my French, name. And that's where you would add your French language if you wanted to just add in a specific, if you wanted to change a specific question in a specific form. And then the multimedia is also available here, and the default is that it'll just go with the default language. So here we've got audio in, Hindi, English, and French, as well as the images in Hindi, English, and French. And again, you can switch back and forth. We can actually switch it here if we'd like. So I can switch this to Hindi as well. And then we're also going to look at multimedia, so that way we kind of all understand. So see, everything switches to Hindi, all of my modules, all of my forms. And I can switch back as well. Okay, do we have any questions so far, or is everyone kind of still with me and good to go? All right, so I'm going to keep going because I don't think we have any questions yet, but feel free to ask questions whenever you want. So the next step in all of this, after we've bulk uploaded all of our languages and set our languages, and sorry, you want to set the language first and then bulk upload, and maybe looked at what it looks like in the forms, and you can either, again, edit everything by hand here, or you can do the bulk. We want to double check our multimedia, so that's we do this by going to the multimedia manager, and again, we have bulk upload. Sorry, wow, can't speak today. For all of our translations, we actually have a bulk uploader for all of our images as well. So you can just save them as the same name in the file path. So here's the path in the application is here, and it gives you a preview of the image, and you can replace the image, or you can actually do a bulk file upload. And the instructions are pretty simple. You just create a zip file, and each image has the path, the same path that it does here. So we'd have a folder called CommCare with a folder called image, and a folder called pregnancy under registration, and then this image would be in there with the name full_name. So it's just actually accessing that file path. So if you're doing, kind of like a few hundred images or 100 audio clips, it's definitely worth your time to go ahead and just use the multimedia reference checker. And once you get the hang of it, it's pretty quick. We also have information online about editing audio and recording audio, and on our help site. So I can kind of walk you through some of that and walk you through some of the information available on our help site for languages as well. So again, like you can see, here are the Hindi images, which are different than the English images. These are actually all the same, but you could do things like the number 2, for example, in this image might be changed to, a more, I think Hindi has different numbers, but you could do that, for example. Okay, great. So actually, let's go ahead and before I pull this up on BlueStacks, which is a tool for looking at phones. I wanted to walk you through our help site and some of the information available there for languages. So you can see we've got lots of different information available, and I highly recommend using the help site. We also have help in French and Spanish. So that's helpful if you're an organization that works in those languages. I'm going to pull up some information about the different things that you should know when building applications in multiple languages. So this actually comes from our certification course that we have and in our certification materials. But here we go. So it corresponds to this site as well, which is configuring languages in CommCare. But just so you can kind of understand some of the different range that you might have. So, adding a new language, which we kind of just went over, as well as changing the default language of an application. So I think if we go back to here and we look at languages, it says which one is the default. This one is set as Hindi. But how would you change the default? You drag and drop actually to change the default, as well as using the bulk application translation upload, which I showed you, and defining the user interface translations. So again, if we go back to here, this happens in here where you can import and export interface translations. So translating the application module and form names, as well as the case list and detail screen. So again, that happens in this bulk application translations. You can download and it's in there. Using the form builder bulk translation tool. So this is something that can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to actually leave this page. It's kind of hidden. So if you want to download a specific form or translate a specific form, you can actually do it under the advanced settings under the tools, and I'll show you that in a second. So use the form builder translation tool. Explain what types of fonts are supported in CommCare. So this is important that that as you're thinking through fonts, specifically difficult fonts like Hindi or Arabic or Japanese or Chinese, that you have to make sure that it's in Unicode. And so I can explain a little bit more about that. And then we have a paid feature of lookup tables, and these are tables that allow you to reference things like a list of districts or a list of sub-districts in an area. And you can actually configure those in multiple languages as well. So I'm going to go over these last two things here. The first one is bulk translations of a form. So if I go to Tool and I say edit bulk translations, I can actually copy and paste all of these and edit multiple translations right in here. So if I copy and paste it, if I select all and copy it, and then I go to Excel, I'm actually just going to open up a new, oh, I think my screen sharing. Okay, so I'm going to open up a new tab here, and I'm just going to drop it in. And as you can see, if I paste it, I can actually edit whatever I want. So if I wanted to edit the full name here to just be name, and then I can actually just select all and copy and paste back into CommCare. So if I go back to CommCare, let's see if it works. So you can see name actually was changed from full name to just name, but that's how you would edit all of your translations. So I would edit all of my questions that I wanted to have a new translation, and it'll bulk upload all of the language for any of the three that we have in here. So again, you can just do the form that way. And then I wanted to go over Unicode really quickly, so that way you understood what Unicode was and why it's important. So CommCare supports many languages, and some require Unicode fonts to display. You may enable native language support in your application so users can enter text in the local language. This only works if your phone model supports the language preferred by your users. So I think often organizations run into a problem where they try to buy phones in one country and send them to another, and there can be issues around that because the local language might not be supported by those phones. So make sure if you're using multiple languages that you don't get caught by that. I've seen that happen a couple of times. One way of getting around that is to source phones in country. Another is to just double check if you're buying from abroad to make sure that they support the local language. For the application to recognize local language and display it correctly, the text needs to be Unicode enabled friendly. This is largely an issue for special scripts. See the information below. So here's an example with Hindi again, as to how it displays on any computer regardless of whether the font is installed or not. And this is, we actually prefer this because then you can easily share that content. Versus a non-Unicode friendly, which displays like this if the font is not installed on the local computer or phone. So again, making sure that if you switch phone models or someone downloads your app in another place, that they're able to still actually read it. And there are actually tools that will help you check if it's Unicode and translate it to Unicode. So here's an example of a Google input tool, the latest and greatest from Google. If you choose Hindi on the right place before downloading it, this works very simple in Hindi, and it works offline and also supports a bunch of other Indian languages such as Bengali or Tamil. So that's pretty exciting, and definitely make sure that as you're thinking through using particularly difficult languages, whether or not it's Unicode. So that can be a really challenging issue that people run into. Okay, so now I'm actually going to show you what this app that we have been looking at for Remind looks like on a phone. So this is, I'm just using BlueStacks, which is a software that allows you to kind of pull up an application and look at it on a computer. So this is just the same one that we had, and we can look at different languages here. So if I want to change the language, I just go into settings and change locale, and I can change it to Hindi. So now my application is in Hindi. So this is the pregnancy module. We're going to register a pregnant woman. You can see how everything's now in Hindi, which is pretty cool. And even the sound clips will be in Hindi.
आपका क्या नाम है?
So for example, they're asking name. Again, this is asking age. So you can see the young woman and the old woman. So they want to know age, phone number, husband's name, village, this is asking last menstrual period, I do believe, actually. So we could do this. Oh, and it actually gives me all my error messages as well in Hindi. Let's see, change this one. There we go, that let me through. And it calculated my expected date of delivery. Okay, so this is asking about family planning, or number of previous births, I believe. So that's a lot. Okay, great. So let's go ahead back in, and you can see we can find that mother again, and still everything's in Hindi. So here's me, I had registered my sister's pregnancy. And then if I want to change it, I can actually either go back here to the main screen and change my settings again. So it's in English. And you can see everything is here now in English. So I can do my pregnancy checklist, and here I am, and everything has changed. Okay, do we have any questions as we go through this? I know this can be a kind of tricky thing to see, but happy to take questions or answer anything that you might have. Okay, great. So I'm just going to keep going through this a little bit then, and we can wrap up again with any questions that you may have, or by going back to the application and maybe adding a few questions into the form and going over different question types in the form. So let's follow up. Let's follow up with myself again. So here it's saying, this is Andrea. Did she complete her registration? This is a very simple application. So an interesting note about this application is this is actually designed for women who have a very, very low literacy level. And it's based on a simple Java phone, not an Android phone. And so what these women are learning is, very, very simple, basic typing. And then they learn that 1 is yes and 2 is no, and hashtag is sound clip. And so they're actually doing a lot of the data collection and using sound clips or using sound clips to actually ask the questions. So again, not a very high literacy level with this application where it's deployed, and I think it's a really interesting use case of like how do you deploy in a low literacy area, and how using multiple languages, or like putting the app in Hindi, for example, and even though they don't speak Hindi, the sound clips and 1 and 2 really seems to work well for them. So again, the questions aren't have they had a previous tetanus shot? It just says previous tetanus, because that's a lot easier for them to read and understand. And things like the big numbers to help go through. Takes iron instead of takes iron and folic acid. Things like that. Great. So again, these are just prompts for them. You can see all the images. And we can go through the child module as well. So again, I can actually change, this time I'm going to change this is Evelyn. Oh, sorry, I had already put her in, but we can register a new one. So let's register a new baby. And while I'm in the form, I can actually go ahead and change the language as well. So if I want to change back to Hindi while I'm in the form, you can see the question changes. And again, so again, this app has lots of sound clips and things like that to help out with what's the baby's name. I'm actually going to put this back in English. So you can go back and forth while you're in the application. And you can set default users as well. So for example, if we knew that I only spoke Hindi and English was really going to throw me off, we can manage the user to have a default language. Great. So I'm going to register this baby as Great. So that's what this looks like when we actually fill it out on a phone. So I'm going to just go back to CommCare and kind of start doing a little bit of the form building to finish up to show you just like a sneak peek at some of the different question types that you can add in. So as you're thinking again about putting apps in multiple languages, there might be other things that are helpful as well. So back to the form builder and looking at this registration, we have different question types, right? So text and label. So for example, the name here is in text, and then we could add a label, that displays the EDD, which this one here is doing that as well. And then I can I'll just delete that one because we have a label. We can add multiple choice questions. So single answer is like this sex of the first child, girl, boy. A multiple answer are things like checklists. So if you see I add a multiple answer, I can have more than one. So, and then numbers, we have integers. So this age question is an integer. We also have phone numbers or numeric IDs. The major difference between this and an integer is that you can actually start it with 0. So, we have a phone number question in here. We also have dates, times, and then dates and times. So again, LMP is asking a date question, so we got to see that. And then this little thing here, the X or chi, is called a hidden value. And the EDD here, what this is doing, it's actually never seen by the user. It's calculating the expected data delivery of the baby based on their last menstrual period. So so it's a calculation that's run in the back end to prevent errors in calculations, and it's a really neat trick that CommCare does. And if you look on our help site, there's lots of information about calculating hidden values, and many of the really basic ones that are used are on there. And you can get very, very complex. We can do scoring, and we can do like Z-scores are a common one for nutrition, but really interesting and complex workflows can happen around the hidden values. We can also do groups. So we can group questions together. We can do a repeat group. So for example, if we wanted to ask how many children does this woman have, and then ask the same questions about those children for their name and their birth date, we can do that over and over again. And then a question list actually is only used for Android and just displays them on the phone. We can also do image capture, audio capture, video capture, and a signature capture. I think the signature capture is really cool. It's a new feature and something that I'm pretty excited to see live in the field because it will hopefully take away a lot of paperwork for organizations and help us validate that someone has or verify that someone has signed off on certain data. So that's pretty exciting. Video capture, image capture, and audio capture. Again, all of these are for Android only, but very useful. We have started using images to put in the case list as well. So when you're choosing, for example, a list from a list of children, having a picture of them is pretty helpful. Also, it seems like a lot of people really like their picture taken. It's pretty much the first thing that everyone wants to do whenever they receive their new fancy phone is take a photo. You can do also GPS barcode scanning we use a lot for logistics tracking, but you could also use it as a way of identifying someone who's already been enrolled in a program. Password protection just means that when you're typing in the answer to the question, it has stars, so no one else can see what you're typing. And then an Android app call out is a really, really great feature of CommCare, and it allows you to call into other apps. So the best one I think I've seen this for is for Malaria Consortium in Mozambique. They did a call out into a very, very simple tool that was just a big green box that does a timer for doing respiratory counts. So rather than, sorry, just added it in accidentally, rather than have a healthcare worker time and try and count, all they do is tap the green box, and at the end of when the time is up, they're given an output, given a number of the respiratory count. So really interesting call out, great idea. We also use it for things like fingerprint scanning. Multiple organizations have apps that we can just call out to. So those are kind of the basic overviews of question types. We can also, if people have questions about like how data looks or things like that, we can talk about that. I kind of left the rest of the webinar today a little open-ended in case people had specific questions for us about how you actually configure languages or other things that you're interested in. Great. So if we don't have any other questions, I'm happy to end early today. And you can always feel free to reach out to me via email. Jeremy Waxman, I know you're on here from Damagi. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add? I can always pass over to you for some voice if you'd like to, if there are a few key things that you'd like to talk about. Okay, we have a question. Great. Could you explain a little more about UI translations? Yeah, that's a really great question. UI translations, I think, are pretty both fun and interesting. So let's actually just go back and we'll look at what the download looks like for UI translations. I'm also going to pull this up here so we can make sure that we're kind of all on the same page on what UI means. So I'm just going to read through the help site quickly and then also show it to you. So user interface translations, really like UI or user interface is just what we call what you like see on the phone. So even though you've built all your forms in a language other than English, you may find that some parts of your application are still in English. And this is just because it hasn't, it might be a unique language or something that we don't have a lot of apps in. And so the text strings, which include the text for error message, the login screen, the menu options, are called user interface strings. And you can translate these yourself. So we actually just like have them available for you to be able to download. So before you start, you should make sure that someone else has not done the work for you already. When you press autofill translations, so if it's set to Hindi, for example, a lot of them should show up. So let's go ahead and look at this. And it looks a little bit scary where you add new translations, but don't worry. So we can import or export the UI translation. So let's download those. This one has been auto-filled, so you can see that they're actually all there already. So I'm going to open this one and we'll switch to that. Okay, so here is, it kind of kicked me off. So here's what pops up for us with the different UI things. So you can see that like form complete, thanks, is something that this application wanted in Hindi. They actually don't have a lot of this this downloaded, but there are a lot of these changed for this application, but you can go ahead and do them for yours. So things like GPS not available is one that might not have been added. So we could actually just fill it in here and upload it. But you should definitely check and make sure that your language is not already in there. So most common languages will already be translated with the UI. But they're all here. If not, you can just kind of upload them in. Again, most people would just send these off to a translator to do the work for them. You can find great translation groups out there, and there are some really phenomenal organizations that help out with that. But so things like retry or send later or like error messages are a really common one that need to be translated. and so they're all listed in this UI translation. That said, if we go back and we look at the other, so for example, let's see if we can do. And here we can look at the Android translations are actually set here in ODK. So it actually just takes you to GitHub for ODK. And this is where it's kind of all stored. So you can also see it here. And again, the help site kind of explains this, I think, better than I can. I struggle a little bit with it. Yeah, so you can add in a key for any of those, as well as bulk upload and download them. So if there's a specific one, for example, that users are really having problems with. But I think we'd also be really happy to get more feedback on this. If you start using it and you really struggle, like definitely reach out to our Google group and feel free to report an issue. But also if you look on CommCare, it says submit an idea, and we'd love to have ideas of how to make things like UI translation easier. Again, most major languages are already in there, so things like French, Spanish, Portuguese, Hindi. I would think any major language is going to be in there. So really, this is only necessary if you're dealing with a lot of local languages. And then the bulk application translations has all of your like module names and form names and lists, like case lists and case detail screens and things like that. Great. Any other questions? That was an awesome question, Tony, and I hope I got you a little bit more on that. It's a little bit tricky, but I think we can always answer on the side as well if you have more questions. Great. Anything else? If not, I think we're done for the day, and thank you so much for joining, everyone. It was really wonderful to have you all here on this Wednesday morning, and hopefully you can join us for our next upcoming webinars. I know we haven't announced the ones for May yet, but there should be one in French. So if you have French colleagues, please feel free to send them to that. We're trying to support French speakers and multiple language speakers as well. And if you have any requests for future webinars on specific topics in CommCare, please let us know, and we'll be happy to put them on the list of future webinars for us to host. But thank you so much, and have a great day.